Who are the top three New York Giant players with the most to gain with a strong summer that aren't named Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley? I'm going to tell you on today's LockedOn Giants, coming at you next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traina, and welcome to a new week. This is week number 2 of the 6-week down period. Boy, the first week just went so quickly, and we are back as promised with all new shows here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you in part by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And on today's show, folks, we are going to talk about 3 New York Giants players not named Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones who have the most to prove this summer. So I picked 3 guys out. All 3 have something in common, which you'll see as I get through the list. And we're going to talk about each one of the 3 guys and why I think they have something or the most to prove out of anybody on the roster. So happy to have you with us. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day or your first watch of the day. Let's jump right in. All right. The first player that I think has a lot to prove in 2021 is safety Julian Love. Now, Julian Love is in an interesting position here. He's never really been a starter for the Giants. This year, with Jabril Peppers gone, with Logan Ryan gone, Julian Love has an opportunity to be a starter this year in this new defense. And whether it's at free safety or the slot or at strong safety, Love's going to have different positions he's going to have to play. But the bottom line is his production over the last 3 years of his career hasn't been horrible, but it could be a little bit better. And I'm going to read off some statistics for you. And I also want to mention real quick, Julian Love is in the final year of his contract. So this is a contract year for him. It's a big year, and much is going to be expected of him in this new defense, which again has seen him line up as free safety, strong safety, outside cornerback, slot cornerback. You've even seen him come up and line up on the line. That's how creative new defensive coordinator Wink Martindale has been with some of these guys. But let's get into the coverage snap, shall we? Julian Love, according to Pro Football Focus, has given up a career reception rate of 71.7%, which is kind of high. He has allowed an average of 11.7 yards after the catch. And tucked within his stats have been 7 career touchdowns allowed, only 3 interceptions, only 8 pass breakups, and he has an NFL coverage rating of 107.6. And again, remember, for a defensive player, the higher the rating, the worse that is. I mean, for the offense, you want it to be high. For the defense, you want it to be low, obviously, because that means they're breaking up passes. So Julian Love, as I mentioned, he's a very smart player. He's a guy who can do a lot of little things well. I don't know if you can say he does any one particular thing well. I always get a little concerned when you have a guy who's a jack of all trades and a master of none, because generally what you get is a performance that, you can win with, but if you can upgrade down the line, you can certainly look to do that. So when I look at Julian Love, I see a guy who, first of all, is taken well to this new defense based on what we saw in the spring. But the coverage end of it, whether he's going to be the free safety, the strong safety, a little bit of both, it's got to get better. He just can't have, guys running free on you, taking bad angles. It's interesting. I always wondered why Julian Love, who was a college cornerback at Notre Dame, why the Giants moved him to safety. And in asking around, the opinion was that Julian Love, didn't have ideal speed for a cornerback, an outside cornerback to play there full time, but was, better off working inside. So, with Julian Love, I think in the past, we've seen some angles that just leave you shaking your head. But overall, this is a guy that I think can certainly have a make season as opposed to a break season. Julian Love is a smart player. He's a guy who is execution sound, a guy who is dependable, a guy who has been durable. I think this year he can certainly cash in on his contract year and deliver a big year. Now, does he have a long-term future with the Giants? My guess is no, not with Dane Belton on the roster and the Giants looking to, import some youth. Also there's this kid, Yusef Corker, who is going to be one of my guys to watch at safety this summer. So this could very well be Julian Love playing for a contract with another team. Now, could that team be the Giants? It certainly could. But my guess is it's not going to be because of the youth the Giants drafted and have on the roster. That said, this is a make or break season for Julian Love. I think he's going to deliver the goods. And I'm curious to see how he does and if he can keep up the durability and just handle all the assignments that are going to be thrown at him in this defense. All right, who else is on my list of guys who are facing a make or break season that aren't named Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley? I'll tell you who's number 2 on the list coming up right after this. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming at you on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, if you're looking for that special gift but can't decide, or maybe you're just ready to pop the question to that special someone, BlueNile.com has you covered either way. BlueNile.com has jewelry experts on hand 24/7 via phone or chat to help you find a gift within your budget range. And if you're feeling creative, you can use Blue Nile's online tools to create that perfect one-of-a-kind diamond ring. Whatever your occasion, make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more with the code Locked On. So go ahead, put your faith in Blue Nile and know that every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what is inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. And don't forget that promo code Locked On to save $50 off your order of $500 or more. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. My name is Patricia Traina. Happy to have you with us here on this Monday edition of the show. And the ultimate NBA mock draft started on June 16th. And with over 50 insiders, nothing equals the ultimate NBA mock draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board draft experts plus the Odyssey insiders. The first pick, like I said, has already been made. It was made on June 16th. So please search the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. All right. Some great stuff going on over at that Ultimate Mock Draft for the NBA. And if you're a basketball fan, you will not want to miss it. So do check it out. We are talking about 3 players on the New York Giants who need to have a successful season. They're facing a make or break year this year, and who are not named Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley. Those 2 would have been too obvious if I had gone with those 2. So I picked out 3 other guys that I think need to have a successful season if they're to have a future with the team. All right. Number 2 on my list is wide receiver Darius Slayton. Now, it's interesting because Darius Slayton, as we know, when he came out of college, out of Auburn, he had a successful rookie season. He was Daniel Jones's most trusted target. He was a guy who was most productive in that offense, which wasn't a very good system, but Slayton was pretty good in that. And ever since that first year where he had a team leading 8 touchdowns, Slayton has seen his numbers decline. And we're talking decline significantly, not just a little bit here, a little bit there. So let's take a look at some of the numbers that he has, his career numbers. Thus far, Slayton has a 3.4 career average yards after catch. That's not good. All right. He's had 5 touchdown receptions in the last 2 seasons. And again, he logged 8 in his rookie campaign. He's also had 12 drop passes in the last 2 years, 6 per season. He had 3 in his rookie campaign. And his contested catch rate, which, a guy with Slayton's height you would think would be pretty decent. He has a career 36.4 career contested catch rate. And the last 2 years, he's been successful on 8 of 30 contested balls, which is a 26.6% contested catch rate. All right. Now, with a $2.5 million cap hit and the fact that he doesn't play special teams, it's probably fair to say that Darius Slayton is going to be on the bubble. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think has been going on with Darius Slayton. Some of it obviously has been, you can question the scheme, the offense and whatnot, but Slayton has also had some injuries over the last couple of years. Now, he hasn't missed time or a whole lot of time due to those injuries, but they have clearly affected him, not just physically, but his confidence. That has taken the biggest hit, is his confidence. So one of the things the Giants have been trying to do with Darius Slayton in the spring is build that confidence back up. So how have they been doing that? Well, with Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard all sidelined due to various medical issues, Darius Slayton saw his fair share of snaps with the ones as well as with the twos. All right. Now, the big thing is when you fall off the bicycle, you have to get back on it and prove to yourself that you could still ride it. That's the approach the coaching staff has been trying to take with Slayton, because, the misfortunes he's had, the drops, the injuries that have slowed him down. It's kind of obvious if you look at his tape that it's affected him mentally. And the coaches, by allowing Darius Slayton to compete for a job, by giving him opportunities, they're trying to rebuild that confidence. That's a big reason why, people ask me all the time, they say, why is Darius Slayton still on this roster when the Giants can save $2.5 million in cap savings? Well, because they want to build up his confidence, because even if he's not in the plans for this team, and P.S., it's hard to see him in the plans with, being a number 4, possibly even a number 5 receiver that doesn't play special teams and, is kind of limited as to his offerings. They want to build up that confidence so that he can continue to have a career in this league. So Darius Slayton would be my number 2 choice as a player who is facing a make or break season. And how do I think he's going to do? Well, based on what we saw in the spring, I thought Darius Slayton looked healthy. I thought he looked like he was starting to get his mojo back. He looked a lot more confident than I can recall seeing him the last couple of years. He sounded confident, not to the point where, he was putting the cart before the horse or anything like that. But there was definitely a change in Darius Slayton, a little bit more confidence. I don't want to say a swagger, because that's probably not the right word, but there was definitely, a mood shift from what I've seen the last couple of years. Now, will that continue? The thing with Darius Slayton is the minute something goes wrong, he's got to have a short memory. He cannot sit there and dwell on what has gone wrong. And I think he was guilty of that a little too often last year. So I think and would hope for his sake that if the coaching staff is able to build up that confidence in him, that he's going to be a better player. Will he be a better player for the Giants? I'm not so sure, again, because of the cap's number, because of the fact he doesn't play special teams. I think that would just be, I don't know that they could justify it. I mean, they could, I guess, because they've carried him thus far and he does count against the top 51. But really, if you want to manage the cap wisely, you probably don't want to carry that big of a number for a guy who doesn't play special teams and who is your number 4 or number 5 receiver. At least that's how I feel. But the Giants might feel differently. All right, we've got one more guy on my list. We're going to tell you who that guy is coming up next. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, BetOnline is the only place that offers the best information on the latest odds, contests, and player props for all your sports betting needs. No matter what sport you're into, betonline.net has you covered. Plus, they offer everything you need to know for live betting and for your favorite Vegas casino games. So head on over to betonline.net today and learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina, your host, and we are running down my list of 3 Giant players facing make or break seasons, all right, that are not named Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, by the way, because those names would have been too obvious. So I tried to think outside of the box with these names. These are guys who I don't want to say are on the bubble. You know, we talked about Julian Love in the first segment. I don't think he was ever on the bubble. Darius Slayton in the last segment could be on the bubble, as could this next guy who's on my list. And this next guy who's on my list is outside linebacker O'Shane Simonez. Now, Simonez is a very interesting case. I'm going to read you some stats, again, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. In his rookie season, he played 502 snaps, generated 25 pressures, and I think he had his career high in sacks. In the last 2 seasons, when the coaching change came in, you know, Joe Judge's staff, basically Simonez disappeared from the landscape. All right. He played in 293 snaps, generated 10 pressures, and just, you know, last year disappeared from the landscape altogether. You know, he had that big mistake in the Kansas City game midway through the season. And after that, he was a healthy scratch, almost as though the coaching staff gave up on him. So, you know, that led to some speculation this past offseason. Well, maybe the Giants would move on from Simonez. Maybe they would cut him and go in a different direction. And then when the Giants added, you know, additional outside linebackers, they added, you know, guys in the draft, Kayvon Thibodeau. They've got Ellerson Smith who can give them that pass rush. You know, Jihad Ward who could give them that pass rush off the edge. They added some guys. And so right off the bat, people were like, okay, is there going to be room for Simonez, who was acquired by the Giants with the 3rd round pick in 2000, I think it was 2019. It was the 3rd round pick that they acquired in the Odell Beckham Jr. trade with Cleveland. So could they salvage this kid who has a quick first step, but his problem has always been playing against the run. Now, to back up a little bit and be fair to Simonez, he was coming from a smaller program. So his learning curve is a little steeper. But there was some question about whether or not you saw the instincts and coverage, whether you saw, you know, did he have a feel for the pass rush, or was he just one of those, you know, guys who just took off and whatever happened. The run defense, like I said, was a problem. And, you know, and Simonez right now, he has a 1.2 million cap hit, which puts him in the top 51. He is in I believe it's year 3 of his contract. Let me just double check. No, he's in the final year of his contract. All right. So if the Giants were to move on from him, they would save $995,000 and they would take a dead money hit of $209,195. So you're not talking a huge cap hit, but certainly enough if you wanted to do like sign a guy on the cheap, you know, to replace him. So, you know, Simonez, you know, I got to be honest with you. I mean, in this defense, I think he could have a role, but the big concern I continue to have with Simonez is against the run, because he's just hasn't been stout against the run. You know, last year he came in and I was really, really hoping that he would set the training camp on fire. And he came in and he started the season on PUP with a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken. And it took him a long time to get on track and get his game going. And by then it was just like too late for him. So he's got a lot to prove to this coaching staff. There's just, you know, this is a make or break year for him. He's either going to seize the opportunity and continue on, or there is a possibility that if he gets cut, I don't know if teams are going to take a flyer on him because, again, there's that small school learning curve. There's the reduction in snaps, part of that due to, the injuries and stuff. It's a critical year for him. You throw in the competition, like I said, I personally think that Ellerson Smith maybe has an advantage over Simonez. I think that, Jihad Ward will definitely see some snaps. There's just not enough snaps to go around. So guys like Simonez, I think, are going to be on the bubble come this summer. And he's not going to be the only one from the young, rookies that'll be on the bubble. I only did 3 guys in this show, but, Carter Coughlin's another guy. I wonder if he's got a future here. That's inside linebacker. So, that's another topic. But there is a lot of competition at both outside linebacker and inside linebacker. And, Quincy Roche is going to probably be ahead of Simonez. And it's just, I don't know that Simonez is going to make it. I mean, he's going to have not only a strong camp, but I think he's going to need the guys ahead of him or who project to be ahead of him to end up with injuries. So it's really a shame because Simonez is a nice kid. He's got some talent, but, just the game just never evolved for him as far as, at this level with the run defense, as far as, just, playing a fundamentally sound game. And it's a shame because there is talent, but who knows, he could still turn it around. Stranger things have happened, right? A lot of times there are guys that we look at the names and we say, oh, who's that guy? He's probably, a guy that's not even going to make the roster. And then sure enough, a guy like Victor Cruz or Chase Blackburn comes out of nowhere, makes the roster and becomes an important part of the roster. So you never say never, but if you're looking at the roster now, it's kind of hard to see Simonez, sticking around, but that's why they line up and that's why they are going to have training camp and they're going to compete and you just never know. So that being said, that is my list of 3 Giant players who I think are due make or break years for one reason or another. A lot of them for contractual purposes. All 3 guys that I mentioned are in the final year of their respective rookie deals. That was the one thing they all had in common. And they are also playing for their NFL futures this season. So summer camp is going to be big, as is the preseason. So folks, that will do it for this edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast. Again, I want to thank you for making the LockedOn Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Now, please make your second listen of the day the LockedOn NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an off season doesn't equal a break in the action. We'll be back here on the LockedOn Giants podcast on Wednesday as we continue our summer schedule. Until then, everybody have a great next couple of days.